Welcome to the Scale Up Valley podcast, where we bring the best founders and investors to help you scale a business from 1 million to 1 trillion. Today's guest is Juanjo, the co-founder and advisor at Homa, venture partner at Cafant, and also a business angel in more than 100 startups in the last 4 years. He prefers to be known as an engineer, an entrepreneur, and an investor. And Juanjo, welcome to the show.
Welcome, and thanks for inviting me to talk a bit today.
That's
very important to mention in that order. First engineer, then entrepreneur, and only in the last step, investor. At least this is how I feel.
That's really an amazing journey, and we can see the different transitions, and we will discuss those transitions, starting as an engineering, then evolving more into the leadership role in the engineering space as the CTO, then starting to build your own companies as co-founder and CTO, then evolving to a business angel, and also now as a venture partner at Cafant. So that's a great story for any technical person that wants to lead companies and also to become an investor later in their careers. So let's get to know more about your story, Juanjo. How would you? I know how you'd introduce us, but just walk us through a bit of your journey so far.
Well, I'll try to make it short because I just tend to talk a lot. So please interrupt me or tell me if
I will not say because of that. I just looked to your LinkedIn and your experience is massive. So you have different positions to cover, but I assume that you will summarize some of them.
I mean, I first declare myself as somebody very, very curious and very impatient. So I can't really keep on doing the same thing for a long time. So that's why maybe I've moved from A to B and from B to C. No, just kidding. Right. So, I mean, first of all, I first say that I am an engineer because I have an engineering background. I did computer engineering, and I worked, I would say, half of my career really as a hands-on software architect, software developer. I did a lot of big data in the former times and so on, and I really enjoyed it. This is where I feel comfortable. I actually have fun doing a lot of these things. I always worked in the startups. Started my career I come from southern Spain, and I studied in Seville, but then I started my professional career in Barcelona, where I worked for 4 years. Oh. Then I moved to Berlin, where I had the chance to jump into the adtech industry as a developer, as an engineer, growing professional to become eventually a manager, and I started getting some experience managing some small teams. So actually I became tech lead and so on, but always I would say climbing the
corporate ladder.
Not really the corporate.
It's not too much a corporate, right? Correct.
But moving out from spending 60 hours a week coding to eventually start doing some other things, such as managing people and whatnot. So right. So far so good. But then I had the chance when I was in Berlin to meet up 2 guys who later eventually became my partners. So we decided to partner up, move to Paris, where we started a couple of companies throughout the following 7 to 8 years. First one, Bitmotion on the adtech industry, was a trading desk for performance mobile marketing. And that company led us to, a few years later, spin-off / pivot to what later became Homa. It's a publisher for hyper casual mobile games, which is so far, I would say, as of now, a success story. I know you never know how it's gonna end up. But
It's amazing.
as of today, it's currently like a scale up in France, 200 employees, more than 100 million years in revenue.
Amazing.
No, not more than 100 years in revenue, more than 100 million in revenues a year, sorry.
Right.
And more than 150 million raised, living in a way the American dream of an entrepreneur.
In Europe, which is not easy.
Which is not that easy eventually. So my role really evolved.
It's not easy anywhere, just to be fair, but especially let's praise the European founders that a lot of times need to fly to the other side of the Atlantic to do it in the US. And you guys did it in Europe, and I was referring to that. It's super difficult to do it in the US, of course, but sometimes doing it in Europe, it seems almost impossible, right?
I mean, in our case, we found already back by then. I started my career as an entrepreneur in 2015. We moved to Paris. Back by then, I would say Paris was like tier 2 city in Europe from startups slash VC industry. Main reason is that because I met my partners in Berlin, and I would say back by then, Berlin and London were the two main hotspots for startups in Europe.
Right.
And in a way, they still are, but some other cities have reduced the gap considerably today. For example, I would say like Paris nowadays, it's almost caught up with the
size of Berlin, right?
With the last two. But by then, that was not that clear. But the main reason why we moved is basically because none of the three partners who eventually were the co-founders of these ventures that we built were German. And one of the partners was French, had a huge network in Paris. Also, in a way, the laws in France were very nice and very entrepreneurs friendly, way better than in Germany actually. And this comes up to today as well. So for a bunch of reasons, we decided to move to Paris to start off our businesses there. And we're actually pretty happy about it. In a way, my role as you could imagine, my career changed a bit. At the beginning, the first years, I was really continuing my journey as an engineer. I would say I was the first among equals, because I had to be very hands-on. But it's true that the more the business grew and we scaled up in terms of employees and processes and structure, obviously I moved more towards a product business and management. I was obviously, as a tech guy, I was the co-founder. I was the CPO of the company. And so far so good. But years later, when we were big and we grew and we still continue doing that, I really felt personally that I was not having the same fun that I was having years ago. Because it's it's very different when you have a little business or a medium-sized startup than when you're way bigger. My role really evolved a lot. I was barely coding, just solving I don't know, HR issues, fixing any sort of issues across teams, bureaucracy, trying to make others productive, which is very nice. And I think in a way I managed to do, but personally I was not having the same amount of fun. And then I felt that I was not going to be able to continue giving my 200% for the following years in order to accompany the company. So I decided to step down, even though I'm currently still very involved with Homa. I remain as a shareholder, I remain as an advisor, I travel very often to Paris, but I quit from my executive role as a CPO and decided to do something else, and to try out different things. So that happened around a year and a half ago. So in that way, I closed temporarily or forever, who knows? Because I have no clue what I'm going to do tomorrow. My journey as an entrepreneur, which basically lasted 8 years.
Got
7
it.
or 8 years.
And then you moved from Paris to Malaga, where you are based today, or were you already working remotely from Malaga and
Actually,
traveling to Paris?
that was more or less at the same time that COVID hit us. So, there were like this
Right.
period of changes
Okay.
in terms of working from office, working
Right.
from home. So in my personal case, during the middle of the COVID, I moved with my family to a, it was like a fun story, to a cottage in the middle of the countryside in France, in Normandy.
Ah, cool.
So
Amazing
because
place.
yes, I have like a couple of little kids, and I say, well, if they're gonna lock us down in like a small Parisian flat, I'm gonna like become crazy. So at least
Right.
like let's be somewhere where even if we are locked down, the kids can like run
Amazing.
and
Yeah.
play. So it was very nice. And after the COVID, really more or less at the same time than I decided to basically quit Homa and move on. I moved to Germany with my family, back to Germany, in this case, not to Berlin, to a city called Dresden. This is a long story made short, like my wife is from there and we decided
Ah, cool.
to try living there. But after a year and a half, we recently decided to move to Spain. And since the beginning of the year, I'm living in Malaga, south of Spain, which is
Got it.
kind of close to my hometown,
Got it.
but still is a medium-sized city, very international, and cities
Yeah.
like booming from startups point of view. It really reminds me a lot the Barcelona of 10 years ago, which again,
Wow.
Barcelona nowadays might be like a tier 2 city in Europe.
Yes.
But still, I would say like in Southern Europe is the most booming city in terms of technology and startups
Yeah.
and so on. So
We're
I thought
seeing.
that Malaga is what is happening in Malaga. It's a bit similar than what happened in Barcelona years ago. So there's like a very
Right.
promising place to be. And here I am since the beginning of the year.
Sounds amazing, and also the experience across some of the largest economies in Europe, France, Germany, Spain. You only missed the UK, and we know that Italy is not so strong in VC-backed startups, but you almost covered them all, and we can cover it a little bit later, but I think that having a German, a French, and a Spanish or Spaniard in the founding team, it helps when it comes to European expansion, right? And also having a German wife, so a multicultural approach
Yes.
to life and business.
I mean, I tend to say that my home really looks like United Nations, because in a way
Exactly. You
I do
feel
speak
it, feel
like
at home?
I
Yeah.
do speak English with my wife, but my wife speaks German with my kids. We do speak Spanish. They go to French
Amazing.
school because they were born and raised in France, so we continue with that. So at some point, it's like a real mess. But that's in a
Yeah,
way the beauty of Europe. I mean,
absolutely.
that's like that's Europe in a way.
Yeah. What I was kind of not criticizing, but just stating before about the difficulties of European expansion. These are the advantages of being in Europe on the other side of the bottle, let's say. Cool. And let's talk about this first transition. So, did you when you evolved into CTO, were you still working for others, or were you already an entrepreneur at the time?
No, I basically, I mean, as I followed the standard path as an entrepreneur, which is that I basically like quit from my job in the company I used to work and where I actually met my
Right.
partners. And when we jumped on the train of becoming an
2015.
entrepreneur, so really a full-time focus and full-time dedication to the new business that we were
Right.
bootstrapping, Bitmotion by then. And I mean, CTO, what's a CTO? It really depends on
Right.
the size of the company on the stage. At the beginning, I was the only engineer, the only person, and the one like really doing everything. I was the CTO because I was the only one, no?
Right.
But yes, this is the first
Got it.
transition was in a way smooth because my role didn't vary much. I was a hands-on engineer and I continued that. Just that the more the business grew and the more we were growing the team and so on, then my role started evolving naturally in the same time the company was growing.
Since 2015, right? So that was when that chapter started at the time.
So from in these 7 years, basically I grew from being myself alone to end up managing a team of, I would say 30, 40 engineers.
Got it.
And internal in the company, and then eventually other, I don't know, it's impossible to count, like 50 to 100 other developers who work with us as partners. Because the model of Homa, I think I didn't explain before, maybe I summarize it like briefly. Homa, what it does is basically helping mobile developers to make their games become a world success. So what we've built, we realized when we started like Homa that we were very good at promoting apps. And we realized that there was a huge market, which still is the gaming industry. And then inside the gaming industry, you have the mobile gaming industry, which is huge as well, because gaming is huge and mobile gaming is still huge. But then there was a niche within mobile games. It's called the hyper casual niche, which again, it's anyways still huge because the market is massive. Where there were so many studios that they were very good producing games. The quality of the games were very good, but they were very bad. First, monetizing the games, and second of all, doing the go-to-market, doing like a user acquisition. So we saw the opportunity of partnering up with these guys and helping them to improve their games and then promote them. So this is how we started with Homa. Basically, throughout these years, what we've done, we've built a lot of technology, a platform to try to identify the needle in the haystack, which are the games or the prototype of games which has like potential to become like a world success. And then later, throughout like a process of improvements, trying to optimize them and then like put like a lot of gas on them to put them very high on the top charts to make them become like a world success. Just to give you an idea, what we've done is industrialize the production of like hyper casual mobile games, and most of the prototypes, they pass through our system. We end up throwing away, and let's say like in a month we process / iterate / handle around like 200 prototypes, and we end up publishing one. But the one that we end up publishing, it's very optimized, it's been put a lot of love on it, and then because we have to be very, very, very confident that it's going to work at a scale, because we're going to inject a lot of cash in marketing to promote it. So we need to be kind of sure that the ROI is gonna pay off. And that's the model of Homa. So far so good. It's working. We are like on our way to look. We're on our way to find our. I mean, we had like a very nice hit, but in the gaming industry, what it makes you in a way differentiate or become not a unique or a decacorn is just finding one game. You look at the very successful companies that really killed it in the gaming industry, like King or Robio. They just managed to find the game. Candy Crush for King, Angry Birds for Robio. So that's like the main difference. So in a way, it's very similar to the VC industry. You may have a very good companies that may perform and work out, but if you manage to find not the outlier but the super outlier, this is gonna make the difference. So in a way, the goal and the idea of Homa is to scale out the production of video games, obviously like making revenues, but the more we scale out and the more like games we produce, in a way theory says, the more chances we'll have to find out this mega outlier, which is gonna make us become not a big, but like a huge company. And so we're like very ambitious. We're putting a lot of technology on it in order to make it more productive, more efficient. Obviously, we're like very data driven in the decision taking on any process we do on our games. Yeah, it's very, very interesting, and we're very excited about it. So it's
yeah, it's
can't
great to
really
see.
complain. It's fun.
It's great to see that it is still your baby, even not being an executive in the company at the moment. You are still passionate about it, and you still talk about it as your baby, right?
The other day, actually, it's funny because I was actually in Paris a couple of years ago, because again, I might have quit as a CTO around a year and a half ago, but as I mentioned before, I'm still
Right.
kind of like involved in the company as an
And you have
advisor.
joy on that, right?
The current CTO of Homa has been my right hand for many years. I have a close relationship with him, so all of that. So I was a couple of weeks ago in Paris, was there in the office. They were throwing out this kind of like after work drinks or whatnot, and I mean, I joined as like one person more, and then I was like standing there on one corner, observing all the people partying, having fun, making I don't know, and then I was just like standing on a corner, really looking at them, smiling, and in a way feeling happy, because it's what you say. It's like in a way it really feels my baby, maybe a baby that already has grown and
Exactly.
has
It's
already
not a
left
baby
home.
anymore.
It's not a baby anymore, but still it's my DNA is on it, I would say, or at least I feel in that way.
And that's the analogy. Maybe now, as you said, the baby has more than 100 million in revenue, so it's much more an adult, and it's leaving the home of the parents, and you just need to let it go, right? And to be supportive and attend the events and see people having fun and having the adult succeed, right? And
Yes.
feeling the joy of seeing the adult succeeding because you have been there. Raising it in the most challenging times of the story of that baby.
Well, every period of the company is challenging. I might be
Good point.
better
The
or
growth
worse
paradox, right?
for earlier stages where I feel more comfortable, that I can have, let's say, more direct impact. I can be more on the growth hack mode. I can put like a solid base. I can really get into the plumbering and into the mud of the business. This is personally where I have fun of, but it's as important as what they're doing now, which is bringing the company to the next level. I just simply felt that in a way I was not the right person to lead what is coming now. So as in a way,
an
love
enterprise company.
Exactly, I love the company so much that to me it would have been egoist to remain there, because willing as a co-founder, willing the best for the company. If I had to be honest with myself, I had to step down and let some other take this position, because I was not going to be able to be at 200% for the upcoming thing. So it might be difficult, but it was a difficult decision. But right now I'm happy, and I think I made like the right choice.
Kudos for that, and for being so natural in kind of sharing it, because I know that a lot of co-founders go through that process, and sometimes they never recover and they are never comfortable talking about it. It's never an easy. It's easier said than done, and you have done it, and you are even able to digest it in a way that you are able to talk about it in a positive way, right? Not
for me the problem was not basically it's not that I was kicked out.
Exactly. You decided, yes.
I decided, and for me the toughest thing was to convince my other partners and to convince the investors.
We want you to stay. Right.
Pretty much, no? And
exactly.
no, but then in the end, in the long term, they're happy with that.
But look how amazing you are also still supporting the company, and at the same time supporting many other entrepreneurs start their own companies with your experience during this journey. So it is much more, that's what you said, from engineer to entrepreneur and from entrepreneur to investor. So you started as an engineer, then you moved more to entrepreneurship, and through entrepreneurship you grow from an engineer to a CTO of a large company, and then you decided to move more to an investor. How has been this transition and this mindset of moving from an executive that is all your time looking and thinking about a company, and of course thinking about a lot of people, but in your field, thinking about the company with your co-founders, with your leadership team, but then starting to think, how do I support 100 founders that are out there trying to build their companies? And what is my role as an investor? That it's always different than the role of an entrepreneur, right?
So to me, actually, it was very, very natural in a way. Let's call it organic. Maybe if I share my story, it's be easily understood. So I would say around 4 years ago, still when I was
still as an entrepreneur, you didn't
still
move.
as an entrepreneur.
Now you are a full-time investor. At the time, you were a part-time investor, and
exactly,
kind of almost full-time entrepreneur, right?
Exactly. So around 4 years ago, I was proposed to. I mean, I had never done advisory before. I had never invested before. I was full focus on my entrepreneurship role. So, but around 4 years ago, I was proposed to join an, let's call it, association of entrepreneurs, like in Spain, called Seed Broker, which aim to basically help other entrepreneurs. So as a pro bono, let's say this way.
Right.
And I was proposed that, and I say, sure, why not? Let's do it. And then I progressively started participating in some campus that they were organizing, where were like some contests of startups. I started doing some advisory to some businesses. Naturally, this led me to start having some deal flow and be making some first small tickets as a business angel. And so, I mean, not spending so much time on it, totally as a hobby, let's say,
Right.
1-2 hours a week max, but progressively was, I don't know, putting some seeds on growing some other aspects of my professional career, or what is today my new professional career. The thing is that I was doing this as a hobby, also because I was interested in learning new things, and because it really feels good, or really felt good to help others, as I would have liked somebody to help me when I was starting. But what I realized, that it really enriched myself, not professionally, but personally. No, the fact that I was able to help somebody, that was like the surprise. When I was talking sometimes to some other CTOs in earlier stages, and just by sharing them some mistakes I made, how I did the performance review of the engineers at different stages, how I organized the teams. I don't know, just trying to leverage my experience and the slaps that I receive as a CTO, and trying to prevent them in others. And then being told back the impact that, not all, I mean, I'm not here like Jesus to save nobody, but by maybe not providing solutions, but being able to raise the right questions to make the entrepreneurs like think and get them out of their comfort zone. This had an impact, or at least this is what I was told. That night I was in a way going to bed like with a smile on my face. So this really had a positive effect on me. So and on top of it, I was learning a lot about like different businesses. I was growing my network. I was also learning a lot about new technologies, about how some other people were doing different products and so on. So this started progressively in my first 2 years as a let's call it like BA advisor, very part-time, few hours a week, doing this as a hobby. But I was getting some experience on this. And then when I quit from Homa, again around a year and a half ago, my original plan was to take a sabbatical year to rest a bit. And I always tend to say, I always say that this sabbatical year became a sabbatical fail because because I managed to, I guess this is like implicit to entrepreneurship DNA,
Right.
but after 3 weeks basically doing nothing, I was like a Spider-Man, like really hanging on the wall, not knowing what to do. So what it was very natural at this stage was to double down, triple down on this activity. The last year and a half, 2 years have been crazy because I have basically participated in many events, kept on growing my network, talked to many companies, continued like investing a lot, because then there's like a flywheel effect. The more you, I like investing, but also trying to provide something else than cash, to try to bring like some value. I'm very agnostic to the, we can talk about my thesis later or not, whatever, but in general, for me, something interesting is to try to help in a way, to try to leverage my experience, in this case as a CTO and as a founder in the companies I invest. So I don't know what I was saying. I was enjoying that.
You were talking about the sabbatical, and then you were not able to have that year free. You started having a lot of fun in this new activity, and you double, triple down, and you got almost obsessed about it.
Yes, exactly.
Like
so
in any good founder, right? We love so much what we do that we get super intense.
Exactly. So I continued doing this. I started really doing this a lot. Also, I was enjoying very much, because I was talking about the flywheel effect, because the more you invest and the more you help companies, the companies in a way are happy about you. They talk well about you. Then some other co-investors help know about you. Then you get to know some other co-investors. Some other co-investors introduce you to better opportunities. The better opportunities you receive as a deal flow, the more you invest, and then progressively, the more you grow your network and the more you grow the companies you have invested, the better deal flow you have, and the more you get into the community. So this, and meanwhile, I was like learning a lot. So that, in a way, this snowball effect made me be getting more and more into this world, into this industry. Also, moreover, because first of all, I was I like it, and I was really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying a lot, and I'm still like learning a lot, which is my first goal nowadays. So this make me become currently, as a, let's say, full-time professional investor, as an advisor, and then as an, in a way, evolution of this, or very natural, I started collaborating with some VC funds. Again, I believe a lot in karma, to give a lot and then eventually you will receive. Was like meeting people, and some VC friends were telling me, hey, may you help me with this, to analyze this company, or what do you think about that? I always try to leverage my differentiator as a VA that was more of advisor on the technical aspect, which might be not that common on the as a VA, you know. So in this, so about this, so I started to collaborate it with some VC funds, and with one of those, with K Fund, we, in a way, we were very aligned. We liked a lot working with each other, and then we, after a few months of more or less like casual collaboration, we decided to, in a way, put a surname, or like an adjective in our relationship, formalize a bit what we are, and that's why currently I'm venture partner, which means that I'm spending. It's not that it's like having a part-time role, with them, but still feeling one member of the team, spending a few quality hours a week and helping them with many things. Basically, my role there is two things, and then I get one thing back. So what I help K-Fund is, on the one hand, helping them with the analyzing new companies. So I'm just one more angle, one more variable on the due diligence process of the projects that they are analyzing, more again on my side on the technical and product aspect, and also with the companies that they have invested, the rising stars of the portfolio. I also do some advisor to the entrepreneurs / CTOs to help them grow and scale. In the end, it's what I was doing privately as a VA for my companies, but for the companies of the fund. And in return, I'm really learning a lot because I'm inside the fund. I listen and I understand how they think, which is their rationale, whether they decide to invest or not, what are the points that they look at, understand the VC things, and this I use that for my own investments as well. So this learning, so it's a win-win situation. So far, they tell me they're very happy with my help. I'm very happy working with them, and this doesn't take me so much time because it's, again, I'm still, most of my time I'm doing my things privately, but as an aside job, let's say, I'm venturepreneur. So far this works for me, and I'm very happy, and this is how I ended up in my current situation, which basically, to sum up, it's I have absolutely no clue what I'm going to do tomorrow. I'm allergic to long time commitments, but who knows? For time being, this works. Very happy about it. Trying to help others.
And the majority of those 100 plus investments or tickets that you made in startups in the last 4 years were made in the last year and a half, or
yes, I would say last year there were 50 investments, so it was pretty intense, perhaps too much.
Got it.
No, perhaps not, for sure. Because I mean, this is very common it's like a well-known thing, and as in the investment world. So one of the
kind of once a month, one a month, right? Or less.
More like 3 or a month or stuff like that.
So you are doing 3 a month. Okay, cool.
So
1 a week.
Pretty much. No, but in general, I mean, one very common thing, one of the golden rules, is that you need to be diversified. Diversified in many aspects, and investing in startups should be a small, or whatever you define, it's a small part of the diversification of your personal portfolio. Because it has a lot of risk, because it's not liquid, because it's long term, etc., etc. But then, even within this part of your portfolio, investing in startups, from my point of view, it's good to be diversified in 3 aspects. So first aspect is to be diversified in stages of company. Doing some, you can have your own thesis, but let's say that you can invest a bit in pre-seed, a bit in seed, a bit maybe why not in Series A, B. If you don't have access to these deals, then you can become LP of a fund, etc. But to cover life of the different stages of life of companies. Then you got to be diversified in a way industries. You can like more or less some industries, you can exclude some, but as a general rule, I tend to like to be like agnostic to different industries, and to cover most of them with my investment. And the third aspect, and this is the one I know that I'm failing, to be diversified over time. Because you got like some cash to invest, let's make a plan and deploy it over several years, in order to be independent or less affected by a potential crisis, by some macroeconomic situation, etc. Over the last 4 years, I've been very concentrated in the last one, and this is something I'm aware of, something probably I'm not doing well, but again, we enter into this flywheel effect. If I compare the quality of the deal flow that I got last year, when I already built a network, when I already have contacts with I am introduced to many deals directly from other co-investors, which I trust a lot, then it's becomes like harder to say no in a way. So, but my thesis and what I'm aiming to do,
that would be good to share.
It's a bit not so, I mean, it's not the most common one, because typically when you're like a BA, or more or less the rationale that a fund has is to, let's say you got some cash, then you build a portfolio of 30, 40, 50 companies. And then at the beginning, and then you concentrate half of your cash on the 1, 2, 3, 4 that go very well. So you follow on very, very aggressively. So you concentrate on the winners. This is the most common thesis that most of the people follow. In my case, I do follow that, but with like a little variant is that I try to go for a multi-diversification. So instead of going very aggressive on the follow-on on the winners, I do only small follow-ons, and then I reserve part of the cash that I got to keep on diversifying, because I'm with the aim of, in a way, doing the same thing than Homa. Maybe this comes from there, looking for not the outlier that will pay off all the investments or all the fund, my personal, but looking for maximizing the probabilities to get not the outlier, but the ultra mega outlier. But I don't know whether if it's right or wrong, difficult to say. We'll talk. We have another podcast in 5 to 7 years, and then I will let you know if I fail or it was a success.
Absolutely, that sounds amazing. And in terms of your thesis, Juanjo, what are kind of the, so I see that you invest both in pre-seed, seed, and Series A, sometimes also as an LP when it's a little bit later stage, and try to diversify that. In terms of sector, you are agnostic. Do you have any preferences apart from gaming?
Actually, I barely invest in gaming.
Interesting.
And this is something, a pattern that I've seen in some other entrepreneurs who became investors, that it becomes very difficult to invest in the sector when you were an entrepreneur. Why? Because probably you're so knowledgeable about the industry that you tend to see so many bad points and so many risks in all the projects that you see. And also from a more strategic perspective, I consider Homa as the king of my investments nowadays. No, if we want to think from this point of view, so I'm very concentrated from value of portfolio point of view on Homa. And Homa is gaming, so I try to also go to some other industries. But in general, I'm a bit agnostic to industries. What I like in general, or what I exclude, let's say the other ways, are projects which have zero tech. Because in these projects, not because they are not interesting, they might be, and they might be good businesses, but the value that I can add there is very little as an advisor. So then it doesn't really fulfill me. And on the other hand, projects that are very tech oriented or very deep tech, for me, it's also very hard to invest, because it's also very little the value that I can add. For example, biotech or deep tech, or even nowadays blockchain or AI.
Low tech, I mean, it's not, or very deep tech.
Yes, exactly.
So you are in the middle, mid tech.
Anything that they can use basically technology to where they can they can leverage to grow their business and to build defensibility and to make a good business. But I mean, of course, I made exceptions, and I have invested in zero tech businesses, and I have invested in deep tech with over 100 companies. It's difficult to not have made any exceptions, but in general, I try to concentrate on this is my sweet spot, the middle part.
A lot of questions, and a trend that I'm seeing is, especially in more mature ecosystems, is we are seeing operators, and not only founders, but founders as well, but even operators starting to invest much earlier. So they are maybe still at seed or Series A, and they are already they're already investing the first checks in other startups, in other entrepreneurs. In your case, you started to do it in 2019. What was the stage of the company at the time at Homa? So they were kind of Series A or?
Yes, I would say we just raised our first big round, which we call the seed round, but
Right.
in the end it was like a Series A, because I think the first round we raised 7 million. So it was
Right.
already, we were
Especially
already,
at the
I don't know,
time. Yeah.
40 people in the company. We were
Okay.
doing 5 to 10 million in yearly revenue, something like that.
And you felt it was a coincidence, or you felt maybe now I'm prepared to start, paying it forward and being more involved in the ecosystem and starting to invest? This is a question that a lot of founders have in their minds, and also a lot of operators that are thinking, when is the right timing to start investing? If we would see the kind of the investment articles, they would say, since you are born, right? So it's important to start developing your investment mindset, but we know it's always different when people start to wake up to the opportunity of investing, and that is super important for their financial lives and for.
I mean, to invest as a BA, if you've been an entrepreneur, you got to have three things. First is cash, money.
Right. This is
Of
course,
course,
if you don't have, if you are struggling to live,
of course, I mean,
there's not so much to invest.
in
Good
my
point.
case, I was lucky that already the previous business, we had some nice
Cash on the side,
dividends,
right.
and then we did like some secondary in the rounds of Homa, etc. So I had some cash there, which I was willing to invest. Then you got to have some time in a way that when maybe it's like the first phase of your business, of your company, and then you're too much involved operationally working, you're working very hard, 80 hours a week. You don't have the focus and the energy to do this. Only when the company becomes a bit mature, you start delegating. It's not that you have free time, but at least you can really have a couple of hours a week to think of something else. This could be like a good time. And the third aspect to me is knowledge and experience. When you already have gone to war, and even if you're still on war or you're back to war, then you can share you have something, you have some story to tell, or something to help others, which again, most of the times it's not about providing solutions. It's about, most of the times, the advisory role also is of a psychologist. You need to talk to them, you understand them because you've lived the same what they're living, and then you try to raise the right questions to make them think different. And this, at least what in my experience, this at certain phases can really provide a lot of value.
And that's why it's amazing to have a business angel that has been founder and executive himself or herself, because founders can relate much better with those people, and they can also become coaches and mentors.
And this is something I've seen changing over the years from a VC point of view. Currently, this thing that you're mentioning, it's something that VCs are understanding and realizing, and that's why they're bringing to their teams partners, venture partners, operators, which have been entrepreneurs before. Because how the way you can, in a way, or at least it is perceived on this way, that since you have stood on
more empathetic,
exactly, some others feet before, you can understand their problems better, therefore you can help them more. More not from an analysis point of view, but more from a helping and support point of view. If you've been an entrepreneur before, you kind of have more empathy, and then you might understand their issues like better.
And sometimes by experience how lonely it is to be an entrepreneur and to be leading a company as a founder. And sometimes you also don't feel confident to share everything with your investors because they can also worry about the investment that they made on your company and on you ultimately, especially in the first stages. Do you feel the same, that even there is, it is easier because there is empathy with you and you are a business angel, but there is always this barrier, this difficulty of, yeah, but I don't want to worry Juanjo because it just signed the check on this startup and I don't want to tell all the bad stuff about the company, but only if I tell you all the bad stuff about the company, that's the only way you can help me. So sometimes it becomes difficult to manage that relationship. I'm now moving to you have both seats on the table, so you understand both, moving more for the founder seats in relationship with you as an investor, right?
So there's two aspects here. First of all, definitely yes. So even though that there's still some entrepreneurs who are a bit hesitant to open up to me just because I'm an investor, if I'm invested directly or I am doing advisory for the fund. But I would say, generally speaking, no, they tend to open up more because it's open up just because they respect me more, and it's implicit because of what I live through, and just because they just say two sentences and I can really understand what they're feeling, and then they perceive that, and that's why it's easier to open up. This is one aspect. And second aspect that is very important is the fact that I mostly talk to and do advisory to the tech guys of the company, the CTOs of the company, and then as techies, for the good and for the bad, we're a bit special, and we are more, I don't want to say the word honest, but maybe the word is transparent or more naive or less sneaky. So we tend to
under promise or more realistic about stuff, right?
More realistic. We don't feel, we tend to be more cheerful. It's easier. I mean, with the tech guys, again, there are no, this is a cliche, no, but in general, it's true that we are a bit less social.
The same experience.
We
Even not being a technical guy,
we are less social, so it's easier, it's more difficult for us to build a network, to communicate and so on. But once you met somebody that you can talk to, then it's like easier to open up.
Love it.
So to me, just because of these two aspects, because I'm mostly talking to tech guys, I'm also a tech guy, and then they respect me in a way for my career, and I can understand them. So it's kind of easy to me to connect.
Makes a lot of sense. Juanjo, let's go to the last segment of the show where we do here a ping pong of quick questions and answers. So if you would have the opportunity to meet yourself, and now the question is to have a coffee with you 1.5 years ago when you decided to dedicate yourself to a sabbatical that ended up being a full-time investor role, what advice would you offer to your younger self? I think that you already have 18 months here to share something on that coffee with your younger Juanjo, right?
I mean, the first lesson, the first advice would be take your mobile phone and throw it away once in a while and try to disconnect. Because it's the more you do, and then the more you get involved into things, then you live permanently connected. But this is the illness or the sickness of that we all of us live nowadays. No, I mean, in general, the advice would be really follow your heart in a way, and do what you're passionate about. If you're passionate about something, you will end up finding your way through. I started investing and advising, not really looking for an economic return, or at least was not the main incentive, but just really because it felt good. Helping others, for real. It might sound very romantic, salesy, but it's really true. It's really impacted me personally, having the feeling that, or when I was told 1 month afterwards, I had a call with somebody. Hey, I implemented what you told me, and it really had a good impact for us because we could measure in that day. I was happy. That was like real happiness. So,
and what are
because
you?
I'm passionate.
And what are you the most proud of on your journey so far?
The most proud. I'm not sure. I'm proud. I mean, I think I was
of your journey as an entrepreneur, of your journey as an investor, both.
Probably in a way, self-confidence and ambition, because it's difficult to sometimes when you have a comfortable job and a comfortable position and you're still like learning to basically abandon everything and jump on a dream when there are a lot of uncertainties, and later to pivot my career. But to basically, if I had to summarize, it's not that I'm really proud, but I basically being able to follow my instincts and not be afraid of trying out new things on the direction of stuff that I'm passionate about.
Love it. That's a great reason to be proud of. So you have the courage to follow your art, even if your mind is alerting you of the dangers of following your art.
Sometimes people ask me, what is your biggest, I don't know, let's call it advantage, and your biggest weakness? And then I say both are the same thing. It's impatience. Because for at some point being impatient can be like something very bad, but on the other hand, it can be something very good if you manage to handle it properly. So I'm a very, for the good and for the bad, very impatient person, and this led me to do many things.
Worst advice ever received, Juanjo?
Worst advice ever received, I guess, was my family when I was a student, telling me, why are you going to Barcelona? You should stay in Andalusia and become a public employee and have and have a very nice, quiet job as a computer engineer for the civil service. Luckily, I didn't follow them.
And that's why you are here today, impacting other entrepreneurs and other founders to succeed with their companies. And now the resources, your favorite book, and this can be business or non-business, you decide. It's much more to get to know you.
Actually, I'm not so much into essays or business books or whatnot. Of course, I've read the classicals from 0 to 1 and whatnot, and they're nice, but I do enjoy a lot fiction. I mean, there are like many writers that I like. I like a lot historical novels, but in general, I like a lot Ken Follett or John Grisham. Any book of them, I love them.
Sounds great. And your favorite movie or series?
Used to love when I was a kid the X-Files. I don't know if you remember this series in the 90s.
Still of my time.
Yes. I used to love a lot Dragon Ball as a kid, anime. And nowadays
still of my time as well.
Yes.
so I'm feeling old now.
And then some series I've liked recently, of course, the classicals, Breaking Bad or La Casa de Papel. How was La Casa de Papel in English? A Money Heist. That is like on Netflix.
No, that's in Spanish. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It's a Spanish series.
Okay. And finally, your favorite podcasts, excluding this one.
Of course, I would have said this one, but since I have to choose another one, no, I mean, I listened. I'm not so much into podcasts. I have to confess. I only started listening to them recently, but I would say there's 2-3 podcasts, business podcasts about businesses in Spain, which I tend to follow. One is the podcast of ITNIC.
Yeah.
This is like run by the founders of Factorial. That is one of the Spanish unicorns. And And then I do enjoy a lot the podcast of K Fund.
Yeah.
Actually, we have a very famous
I'm
business podcast in the
Novo.
Spanish ecosystem.
Yeah.
Then perhaps the podcast of Seed Rocket as well, the Association of Entrepreneurs to
Yeah.
which I belong in Spain. This is very nice as well because they basically it's a bit similar to the podcast of K Fund. They tend to interview entrepreneurs of different industries, sectors, stuff. Very good to know the different stories of how people
Yeah.
went through.
Three great ones. Juanjo, thanks so much for making the time. Congrats for your journey and for your mindsets. And we have a deal. So you need to get back in the upcoming months or years to share the results and the experiences and the lessons learned as a
I
as a
wish
BA.
I wish it would be months, but most likely it's gonna be like a few years until I see some hopefully decent returns because this is long-term investments and I
Absolutely.
investing mostly in pre-seed seed, so
Got it. Yeah.
we'll see.
Things are getting fast, right? So in 5 years, you can get a very good understanding of what will be working. And that's what
I hope so.
people say in investment, right? So you can, what is tricky is you can see very quickly what will not work. And it takes more time to see what will work. And that's what panics new investors in general.
Yes, definitely.
Juanjo, it was a pleasure to have you on the show. And thanks so much again for being with us.
Thanks to you. Pleasure being here.
And to our community, thanks for being there. We keep bringing you the best of the best to help to make your life a little bit easier as you scale up your company. See you soon and keep scaling.